It's over. The motorcycle industry as we know it has officially collapsed. What started as market concerns in early 2025 has exploded into the worst crisis the industry has seen in decades. We're not talking about a recession, we're talking about complete system failure. July 2025 will go down as the month everything fell apart. Dealerships are closing at a rate of 1 every 2 days. Over 60,000 brand new motorcycles are rotting on showroom floors. Manufacturers are shutting down production lines, and buyers, they've completely vanished. This isn't a correction anymore. This is a crash of epic proportions, and the latest updates show it's only getting worse. Today, we're breaking down exactly how bad things have gotten, why even the biggest brands can't stop the bleeding, and what this means for the future of motorcycling. Let's start with the numbers, because they're absolutely devastating. As of July 2025, there are over 60,000 new motorcycles sitting unsold in dealerships across America. That's not a typo 60,000 bikes that nobody wants to buy. Some of these motorcycles have been sitting on showroom floors for nearly 300 days. 300 days! That's almost a full year of paying rent, insurance, and floor plan financing on inventory that won't move. But here's what makes this truly catastrophic. Even with massive discounts, zero down financing, and desperate promotional events, dealers still can't move inventory. We're talking about $4,000 off premium touring bikes, 0% financing for qualified buyers, and free accessories packages worth thousands of dollars. And it's not working. Foot traffic at dealerships is down 38% year over year. Online inquiries have plummeted over 50%. Walk into most motorcycle showrooms today, and you'll find something you've never seen before: silence. Empty floors, idle salespeople, and managers who look like they're planning exit strategies. This affects every brand: Harley-Davidson, Indian, Honda, Yamaha, Ducati, BMW. Nobody is immune. Even entry-level bikes that used to fly off the floor are collecting dust. The Honda Rebel, Yamaha MT-07, Kawasaki Ninja 400 bikes that were once sure sellers are now part of the problem. Here's why buyers have completely abandoned the market. Motorcycles have become absurdly, unreasonably expensive. Since 2020, the average motorcycle price has increased by over 40%. Let me put that in perspective. A Harley-Davidson Road Glide now costs over $30,000. A BMW GS 1250 Adventure starts between $25,000 and $28,000. Even a so-called budget bike like the Yamaha MT-07 is pushing $9,000 to $10,000 after dealer fees. But the real killer is what happens after you buy. Add in financing charges, registration, insurance, and basic gear, and you're looking at total ownership costs of $700 to $800 per month. That's more than many people pay for rent. Here's the math that's destroying the industry. A $25,000 Harley Street Glide financed at 10% APR over 60 months equals $531 per month. By the end of the loan, you've paid over $6,800 in interest alone. That's nearly $32,000 for a $25,000 motorcycle. And this isn't theoretical. 1 in 4 new motorcycle buyers in 2025 is carrying a monthly payment of $500 or more. For a recreational vehicle, for something that sits in the garage 6 months of the year in most climates. But even if someone wants to pay these insane prices, they can't get financing. Interest rates have absolutely destroyed motorcycle lending. In 2020, a buyer with decent credit could finance a new motorcycle at 3 to 4%. Today, that same buyer is being quoted 9 to 11% for a new bike and 12 to 15% for used. People with less than perfect credit are looking at 18% or higher if they can get approved at all. This has created a perfect storm of financial impossibility. High prices combined with brutal interest rates have priced out the majority of potential buyers. And those who do get financing, they're defaulting at record rates. Motorcycle repossessions are up 31% year over year, the highest spike since the 2008 financial crisis. Why? Because people are finding themselves thousands of dollars underwater just months after purchase. When your bike is worth $15,000 but you owe $22,000, walking away starts to look like the smart financial decision. These repossessed bikes are flooding auction houses, selling for pennies on the dollar. Some dealerships are buying back bikes they sold less than a year ago for 40% less than the original sale price. It's financial insanity. The dealership network is collapsing in real time. Since January 2025, over 120 motorcycle dealerships have permanently closed their doors. That's one dealership every 2 days, and the pace is accelerating. These aren't just small, struggling shops. We're seeing massive multi-brand superstores and established family businesses that have been around for decades shutting down permanently. The entire dealer infrastructure that supports the motorcycle industry is crumbling. Here's why. Dealerships are drowning in inventory costs. Most dealers don't buy their bikes outright, they finance them through something called floor plan financing. These are short-term loans that charge interest every month a bike sits unsold. When bikes used to sell within weeks, floor plan costs were manageable. But now, with motorcycles sitting for 250, 300, even 350 days, those monthly interest charges are bleeding dealers dry. Many are spending more to hold inventory than they're earning from sales. At the same time, operational costs are skyrocketing. Commercial rent, wages, insurance, utilities, everything is more expensive. Meanwhile, sales revenue has fallen off a cliff. It's mathematically impossible for many dealers to survive. The survivors are getting desperate. Some are liquidating entire inventories at massive losses just to pay floor plan fees. Others are pivoting away from motorcycles entirely, focusing on ATVs side-by-sides or electric scooters where demand is slightly less catastrophic. But here's the most telling sign. Even the big dealership groups are struggling. Companies that own dozens of locations are quietly consolidating, merging stores, and laying off staff. When the giants of the industry are retreating, the situation is beyond repair. You might think, well, at least used bikes are affordable. Wrong. The used market has collapsed so completely that even bargain prices aren't attracting buyers. A 2023 Honda Africa Twin that sold for $12,000 to $13,000 last year, you can find the same bike today for $7,500 to $9,000. And it's still not selling. Private sellers are getting lowballed on Facebook Marketplace and Craigslist. Dealerships have slashed trade-in values by 15 to 25% in just the last 6 months. Buyers are haggling harder than ever and walking away if they don't get massive discounts. But here's what's really scary. Even with these collapsed prices, buyers aren't biting. Why? Because they know the crash isn't over. They're waiting for prices to fall even further. And they're absolutely right to wait. The flood of repossessed bikes hitting the market is accelerating the price collapse. When auction houses are dumping quality motorcycles for 40 to 50% below retail, it destroys the value of every bike in the market. This creates a vicious cycle. Falling used values make new bikes even more overpriced by comparison, which reduces new bike sales, which increases inventory problems, which forces more desperate discounting, which further destroys residual values. The industry's biggest names are now in full panic mode, making cuts that would have been unthinkable just 2 years ago. Harley-Davidson has idled 2 production lines and reduced Q3 output by 35%. Indian Motorcycle has suspended dealer allocations for certain models due to massive oversupply. Honda is scaling back US shipments by 20%. BMW Motorrad has postponed North American expansion plans indefinitely. Zero Motorcycles has laid off over 12% of its workforce. These aren't temporary adjustments, these are survival tactics. When manufacturers are cutting production this aggressively, it signals they expect the crisis to continue for years, not months. But the cuts might be too little, too late. The industry built production capacity during the pandemic boom, expecting continued growth. Instead, they're facing the worst demand destruction in decades. The mismatch between production capability and actual demand is staggering. Some industry analysts are predicting manufacturer consolidation, mergers, acquisitions, or outright failures of smaller brands. When survival becomes the primary goal, the luxury of competition becomes unaffordable. Underneath all the financial chaos lies an even more fundamental problem. The core motorcycle customer base is disappearing. Baby boomers who have historically driven motorcycle sales are aging out of riding. Many are selling their bikes or simply quitting motorcycling altogether. But here's the killer. Younger generations aren't replacing them fast enough. Why aren't millennials and Gen Z buying motorcycles? The reasons are structural and probably permanent. Insurance costs are astronomical for young riders. Urban living doesn't provide garage space for motorcycle storage. Licensing requirements are complex and expensive. And crucially, motorcycles just aren't seen as essential transportation anymore. For previous generations, motorcycles represented freedom, rebellion, and independence. For younger generations, they represent an expensive hobby that competes with travel, technology, housing costs, and student loan payments. The cultural shift is profound. Riding used to be aspirational, something people dreamed about and worked toward. Today, it's optional luxury that feels increasingly out of reach and out of touch. Making everything worse is the complete breakdown of motorcycle lending. Lenders are tightening credit standards so aggressively that even qualified buyers are being rejected. Banks and credit unions that used to compete for motorcycle loans are now viewing them as high-risk investments. The combination of rapid depreciation, high default rates, and economic uncertainty has made motorcycle lending unattractive to financial institutions. Even cash buyers, traditionally the most reliable segment, have largely disappeared. High inflation has eroded savings, forcing people to prioritize necessities over recreational purchases. Those who do have cash are holding on to it, expecting even better deals in the coming months. This creates a doom loop. Fewer qualified buyers means dealers become more desperate, leading to more aggressive discounting, which accelerates depreciation, which makes lenders even more reluctant to finance motorcycles. So what happens next? The short answer: it gets worse before it gets better. We're entering the fall season, when motorcycle sales traditionally slow down. Dealers who are already drowning in inventory will face months of minimal sales while continuing to pay carrying costs. Expect a wave of dealership bankruptcies between now and spring 2026. Manufacturers will be forced to make even deeper production cuts. Some smaller brands may not survive at all. Consolidation is inevitable, whether through mergers, acquisitions, or simply disappearing from the market. For buyers, this means unprecedented opportunities if you can wait. The desperate liquidation phase hasn't even started yet. Dealers sitting on 300-day-old inventory will eventually have to sell at any price just to survive. For current owners trying to sell, time is running out. Every month you wait means lower offers and fewer buyers. The smart money is selling now, even at a loss, rather than waiting for a recovery that may not come for years. For the industry, this represents a complete reset. The motorcycle market that emerges from this crash will be smaller, more focused on value, and oriented toward practical transportation rather than lifestyle marketing. This crisis exposes fundamental flaws in how the motorcycle industry operated. For years, manufacturers chased higher margins through premium pricing, expecting customers to pay more for essentially the same products. They ignored demographic trends, betting that brand loyalty would overcome financial reality. They overproduced during pandemic demand spikes without considering sustainability. Now reality is hitting hard. Motorcycles priced like luxury cars but built like recreational vehicles don't make sense to consumers. Complex financing for depreciating assets doesn't work when interest rates triple. Exclusive brand cultures don't attract mass markets. The survivors will be companies that embrace affordability, reliability, and practical transportation. Electric scooters, basic motorcycles, and utilitarian designs will likely thrive, while premium touring bikes and lifestyle brands struggle. July 2025 marks the month the motorcycle industry officially collapsed. What we're witnessing isn't a market correction, it's the systematic destruction of an entire business model. 60,000 unsold motorcycles, one dealership closing every 2 days, repossessions at 15-year highs, interest rates that make financing impossible, demographics working against demand, and manufacturers in full retreat. This is what happens when an industry loses touch with basic economic reality. When you price recreational vehicles like luxury goods but expect mass market adoption, when you build business models on easy credit and ignore what happens when that credit disappears. The motorcycle industry will survive, but it will emerge from this crisis fundamentally different. Smaller, leaner, more focused on value than prestige. Companies that adapt will thrive. Those that cling to the old model will join the growing list of casualties. For riders and potential buyers, the message is clear. If you're thinking of buying, wait. The best deals are still coming. If you're thinking of selling, act fast. The window is closing rapidly. The golden age of premium motorcycle pricing is over. Welcome to the new reality. What do you think? Have you seen signs of this collapse in your local market? Are you waiting to buy or rushing to sell? Let me know in the comments and subscribe for more coverage of this unprecedented industry meltdown.